Hello and welcome to All Villa No Filler, a podcast all about Aston Villa, the world's greatest football team. Please do remember to subscribe to the show as ever. Follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. So, Aston Villa lost 3-0 at Chelsea. The poor run continues. That's 8 games without a win. Oh dear, we'll get to that in a moment. And Frankie will also serve up one of his spicy questions. First things first, Frankie, how are you? The last time I saw you, it was face to face.
Mm,
It was in London. It was where you are and where you were, and you saw the
yeah.
Chelsea game today as well. Um, that was good, wasn't it? It was good fun.
Oh yeah, the Football Content Awards.
It was.
Yeah, that was very good fun. Met a lot of really good people. Met Simon and Max from Villa on Tour. Met Priyanka Jasraj as well from her game too. Yeah, had a great time catching up with them, and it was just amazing to be there. Really, to be like nominated for an award like that was, sort of hit home when you're at this, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and there's all these tables set out, people getting awards, and yeah, kind of stunning, really. Shows how far we've come. Just like Aston Villa itself shows how far we've come in just a short space of time.
It certainly does. It certainly does. Villa's meteoric rise, our meteoric rise, they
Yeah.
do go hand in hand. We didn't win. It was obviously fantastic to be nominated. And maybe that coincides with Villa's form at the moment too on the pitch. Very disappointing. Frankie, as I said, 8 games without win now. Um, it's been a very difficult, challenging run of games. You were at Stamford Bridge. Talk to
Was.
me. How was it in the flesh for you?
Well, yeah, I was there with the London Lion himself, Alex Conway. Had a great old time. Thanks to Alex for the ticket. Yeah, it's always fun being in a away end. I always just enjoy it. I enjoy the vibe of it. But I don't, before the game when I was talking to fellow Villa fans about it, I think all of us had the same sort of resigned air of thinking 3-1, 3-0, maybe something like that. Um, and that's very rare under Unai that we've ever felt kind of resigned. But we were, and it turned out to be the case. And I kind of hoped in my head, I thought, after Juventus, I wondered, like, could we do a repeat of what we did at Arsenal last year? We weren't in great form at that point. Got the 2-0 away win at Arsenal when they were in such red hot form. They were winning every game. Could we do something today where we just, hold the line, tighten up defensively, get a result? But no, not at all. We were, look, it's kind of weird because in the first half, I actually thought there were some spells where we actually looked all right, and I thought we're actually created decent chances. And I looked at the XG after it, and it's Chelsea were 1.79 and Villa were 1.04. So we should have scored really, and Chelsea overachieved what the chances they created. Now Chelsea's first goal, Philogene miscontrols it. I think I just think that was what it was. He miscontrolled it. Um, the Chelsea defender gets to it, pulls it across. I think could Martinez have done better? Yeah, I think he probably could have done. But Jackson's just in red hot form, isn't he? And if you give him a chance, he's more than likely to take it. I think if it's this time last season, he maybe doesn't. And if it falls to Watkins, he probably does. A minute late, a few minutes later, Villa didn't go within their shells. They still kept going. Big chance for Watkins, and that was the game for me. As soon as that chance happened, I thought, if you don't take that now, as soon as he missed it, I thought, big problem, because Chelsea are going to score again, just the way we're playing at the moment, the way they're playing. They're going to get another goal. And if Villa don't take a chance like that, well, then we're in a world of trouble because they're going to go 2-0 up. And lo and behold, soon enough, they did. Villa had a couple of chances in the first half. There was the Watkins big miss. I haven't seen a replay of it, so I feel like he could have laid it across as well. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, to be fair, it was a good ball through from McGinn, and Watkins did well to sort of outmuscle. I don't know who's the fullback, or was it the centre
was it
half? Might have been
Colwell? I think it was
Fafana or
Colwell.
Colwill.
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah, he did well to sort of brush him aside, and then he was one-on-one with Sanchez just on the sort of edge of the 6-yard box. And Rodgers was steaming into the area. To be fair, Chelsea had a couple of players running in to defend the goal, but it was a tame effort, Frankie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was sort of straight at Sanchez, and it just sort of it looked like the effort of a striker who's perhaps doubting himself or certainly not backing the goals that he was certainly in large chunks of last season. So yeah, no, I agree. I think the first half was quite open. Um, you know, we've got to stop shipping goals early on.
It's just
I
it's a
mean,
nightmare.
shipping goals full
Nightmare.
stop. We've been shipping far too many goals. Our defense has been like a sieve. It's
One clean
been,
sheet this season.
it's
One.
yeah, it's so poor. It's really poor. Particularly considering how we were last season defensively. You know, we were so strong. We had a very settled back line. This season we've been chopping and changing all over the place. You know, Cash is coming in as right back, and then last week it was Bogard started right back, and then we've had Conser playing right back. He was shifted back to the centre half, and we've had Diego Carlos playing centre half. We've had Matson and Digne swapping around left backs. Like it's just been all over the place. And today, obviously, Martinez picking up an injury, so we've had Olsen coming in. We don't know what the situation is with him for midweek. Whether Olsen, I mean, who knows who starts in goal? Is it going to be Olsen again, or is it going to be Gauchi starts in goal? We just don't know where we are at the back at the moment. We really don't. And that it's obviously been to our detriment and downfall this season. We've conceded far too many goals. And I said early goals. As soon as you're conceding a goal inside 10 minutes, you're just on the back foot. Obviously, straight away, you're having to chase the game from very early on,
Mm.
and particularly away at Chelsea. Who were in very good form under Maresca. They've had a very good start to the season. They'll certainly be up there, challenging for the top four
They're
come the
going to
end of
get
the
top
season.
four. They're going to get
Yeah,
it.
the way they're playing. I mean, uh,
Can I just say something about Chelsea? But before we get on to Chelsea, there's something I just wanted to get off my chest that really did my head in today. Right, I'm sat there in the away end, and all the Chelsea and Aston Villa are both warming up beside us. Right, they're substitutes, and I looked at Chelsea substitutes, and I thought to myself, the last two seasons Chelsea have finished 12th and what 7th, 6th, whatever. And I looked at their subs bench and I went, I mean, this is absurd. They've got Joao Felix, they've got Mudryk, £80 million player. They've got Nkunku, who they signed for what, 50 million quid. They've got Malo Gusto. They've got I mean, 20 Badia Shield, a load of I'm looking at that, I'm thinking like, what how is anyone supposed to actually compete with this? I know I'm just saying this now because obviously Villa are, we've had our moment in the sun there getting Champions League. But I look at Villa and I think today I was like, I looked at Tielemans there in midfield and I thought to myself, when Villa are really under the cosh, when we're pressed as hard as we are, which Chelsea do, right? I currently think one of our big problems is teams have worked out how to press us. I don't think we're coping too well with it at the moment. I think basically teams like Chelsea, the top teams, the Chelseas, the Cities, the Arsenals, they all know how to press Villa, aggressively. Whereas teams that play against Villa on the counter know how to play against us in a totally different way. It's like teams in both ways know how to play against us at the moment, and we're not dealing with either, which is a bit of a problem. We've got to get through it, which I think we will, but it's what's happening at the moment. But I looked at Chelsea and I was like, we've lost Douglas Luiz, right? Right. This press, like Douglas Luiz is a player who I think would have coped a bit better with the press than Tielemans did. I think Cole Palmer was absolutely amazing. You watch him in person, right? Attacking wise, his head's everywhere. Like he's like a pigeon. He's looking around everywhere, like just head like a bird, right? Looking everywhere, thinking quickly. You can watch him, but at the same time, his positioning to defend, like he was always on Tielemans. Never stopped running back to get to Morgan Rogers. He was absolutely brilliant defensively and offensively, right? But I think that Douglas Luiz probably copes a little bit better than Tielemans does in that pressure. I'm not having a go at Tielemans. I just think Douglas Luiz is a better player on the ball when it comes to being pressed by multiple
mm,
players. And on top of that, I look at Aston Villa and I think, right, Villa Jean starts ahead of Leon Bailey today, right? Last season it's Moussa Diaby. We had to sell Moussa Diaby and we had to sell Douglas Luiz. And I'm looking at our bench, I think, all right, Villa's squad, it's a bit stronger, but we're not stronger in the sense that we've lost Diaby and Luiz. We're just not. And that is kind of it's what Newcastle and Aston Villa both had to cope with the last two seasons. I can't help but feel like looking at Chelsea's bench today, like quite furious about it and kind of like, you thought, like, what like I support PSR in the sense of like, look, if PSR didn't exist, Newcastle just go and buy all of our best players like Man City did in 2008. So let's not pretend that isn't what would happen because it is. Because Newcastle would go and spend 50 million quid, no, 100 million quid on Boubacar Kamara just because they could. Just because they could. They could go spend 100 million on Ollie Watkins just because they could and not play him because play Isak ahead of him. So that's what it's stopping, right? I get that. But the system itself, it just feels like how on earth are we in a world where Chelsea have that squad, having had two dreadful seasons, and it doesn't matter? It just fundamentally doesn't matter. And it's the same as Man United. It won't matter. They've been poor for multiple seasons. It doesn't matter. Whereas Aston Villa cannot afford to be poor for one season, and Newcastle probably the same. And I look at Villa this season, I think we're not like we could easily fall down to 10th. That's the sort of form we're in at the moment.
Yeah.
And what all right, sell Watkins, sell Duran, sell Martinez. It just fundamentally doesn't work. It just I don't know. It's literally looking at that suspense today. I don't know, something clicked in me that was like I don't know. It just grated on me.
Yeah, no, I think it grates on a lot of fans who don't support the, top four, top five clubs. Something is systemically wrong, but it has been for such a long time.
Yeah,
It's one of those things where, if you are a United or a Chelsea, you can go multiple seasons without success, and still go out and seemingly spend 80 million pounds on some star from Portugal or whatever, and you know. Hope for the best for the following season, but at the end of the day, it kind of doesn't matter regardless. It's it's
yeah,
it's it's really odd and it's really funny and very frustrating. And yeah, if you support Newcastle or Villa or West Ham or Brighton, I don't know, any club that's sort of trying to break into that top four, you always feel like there's that sort of concrete ceiling above your head, which is stopping you from genuinely and legitimately competing with them.
mm,
And if we talk about Chelsea specifically, in the Conference League, which is like the equivalent of them playing in the Johnson's paint in
yeah,
terms of like, the opposition they're up against. They can play an entirely different 11 and go and smash a
yeah,
team 6-0. And that means that the team that faces Villa are all fresh and fine and absolutely good to go.
yeah,
So that is what we're up against. So European football to likes of Chelsea and United, it doesn't really seem to matter because they can rotate one £100 million player for the next in between competitions. But for us, we do look leggy, we do look tired, and it's because we're playing the same players,
mm.
you know, day in, day out, Wednesday in, Wednesday out, Saturday in, Saturday out. So
We're
Morgan
play
Rogers looks knackered,
we're having to
Bailey
play
looks
players out of
knackered.
form. Like look,
Yeah,
Tielemans and Morgan Rogers are not in good form at the moment. They're just not. Morgan Rogers is in really poor form. He is,
yeah,
and I almost looked at it today, and there was moments where Villa got in down the left, right, and I watched John McGinn racing after the ball, and I thought John McGinn's not. It's almost like he's playing as a winger, and he's not a winger. And I was thinking to myself, it's almost important. Like, just put John McGinn in Tielemans' position. Put Tielemans as the second striker next to Bailey, which worked at times last season, and put Rogers out left. If you're going to play that down the left, just do that instead. But yeah, I think Ramsey's injuries come at a bad time because I think that it would give Ramsey a chance to go in on the left. Maybe put McGinn second striker, just give Rogers a moment out. It just feels like Rogers needs a breather because he's
yeah.
had a meteoric rise, and obviously his form has dipped, and that was always going to happen because he's 21, 22. He's playing in a high pressure environment. He's been fantastic at points this season, but it just feels like he's got to a point where looks a little jaded. Just needs time out.
Yeah, no, definitely, and that's the reason I think why Bailey was taken out for Philogene today, just to give Bailey a bit of a break as well. I mean, results aside, I think the performances as well haven't been great. Even in the draws against Palace and Juve, which sounds mental, but Juve aren't the team that they were, and they had tons of injuries. They had a weird situation where they only had about five people on the bench, and we should have on paper won that game, but again, we're in this sort of form rut, and then VAR sort of cost us again in the final minute in that game. We kind of could have done with a win,
Yeah,
just to kind of get that monkey off our back
yeah,
ahead of the Chelsea game. But it was what it was, and we'd have so little time to turn it around because we've got Brentford midweek. Brentford who go and smash Leicester. So they're going to be up and at it, and they always. I mean, you'll always get a game against Brentford, so that's going to be challenging. And then, as I said earlier, we've still got these injury issues, and Martinez could be out for the midweek game against Brentford.
mm.
So
What
yeah, it's been a while since we've been on this podcast, and sort of there's been this
2 years?
this negative, yeah, it has been, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's been
It
over
has
two
been. It's been
years.
since the sort of the Gerrard era, and
Yeah,
that is exactly the sort of form that we're in. This is sort of Steven Gerrard form.
yeah. Uni G.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah. But I'm not calling for Unai to go. Obviously, I'm not. He has an exceptional amount
no,
of credit in the bank, as
yeah, of
far as I'm
course it is.
concerned,
Yeah,
and And I think we just have to play through the pain a little bit until we sort of,
Well,
reconnect, reconfigure,
if,
get some players back,
if
and just something needs to fall for us. I think in a lot of these games as well, we just haven't had the rub of the green, the
yeah,
luck that we were having last season.
yeah,
Sometimes we were playing teams and getting bullied, and they would hit the post, hit the bar, and whatever, and we'd go the other end and score.
mm,
That those chances now are going into the opposition, and the chances that we're getting just aren't. So we're
yeah.
we're just not. We're just nothing is falling for us at the moment, and we just need a bit of luck to get us going.
Well, it feels like, like I say, like you look at Chelsea's XG 1.79 and ours is 1.04. I mean, it feels like there's been a lot of stats this season where Villa are actually creating a lot of big chances and not taking them
Yeah,
and conceding goals when you sort of we're over conceding compared to what. So it feels like that has to change. Like that cannot, by the law of average, that simply cannot continue. So hopefully that that does work itself out. Hopefully.
yeah,
Um, and I do think it probably will at some point. I think squad wise, I look at us. I just think we are a very we do have a very strong squad. We're just going through a bad moment, and we're not actually far away from just a couple of wins and being straight back into contention for things. But the problem is when I look at Brentford this week, I don't have any confidence. I actually think we might lose to Brentford at home. The
Well, we've
thing,
got we've got we've got we've got two home games now against teams that on paper you think we get something out of, which is
yeah,
Brentford and Southampton before we play Leipzig away in the Champions League, and then we've got Forest, and then we've got
City,
City and Newcastle.
yeah.
So, you know, you kind of feel like these two games feel quite important.
They're massive. They're massive. Yeah, because otherwise, like we really are looking down the barrel of 10th, 11th. And people were telling me I was too negative when I did a very early preview of this season back in May, when I said Villa, it's going to be tougher this season because we're playing Champions League, and I
Mm.
could see us falling down out of Champions League places. Well, this is what it is. We're basically playing since since early October. We've basically played every 3 days. We're playing bloody. We just played Juventus midweek, having played Palace at the weekend. We're playing Chelsea away today, Brentford at home on Wednesday, Southampton at home, Leipzig away, not Forest at home. It just never stops, and
Yeah.
and that's the thing. Aston Villa as a club, we're just not like used to this, and our squad and players are not used to this. I see it as like, Emery's got a contract to 2029. I see it as part of the growth process. Do I think PSR is necessarily going to allow us to reach the heights we just did? No, I don't, because I think I just don't. Because if Man U and City can, if Man U and Chelsea can screw it for a couple of years and just bounce back by spending £1 billion, well, what are we even watching here, really? But yeah, I do think that Villa, in the long haul, I think we'll be fine. I think we've got like great successes to come. We're just in a very difficult moment. The only thing that I think does actually worry me a bit, and I mentioned it, a few minutes ago, is the fact that I watched Chelsea today and I thought they knew exactly how to press us, exactly how. I thought playing out, we found it an absolute nightmare today. I don't think. I think there were times when we coped with it well, but there were times when we really didn't. And I feel like I've noticed this more and more this season, that teams are pressing much better against Villa than they were. And the other thing I've noticed as well, I feel like a high line's just gone. I feel like last
Mm.
season, like every single game, we'd get teams offside over and over and over again. I feel like
Yeah,
now, I feel
totally.
like I see
Yeah.
it maybe like once or twice a
Yeah,
game.
it never happens.
It just doesn't really happen anymore. So
Yeah.
whether that's an adjustment in how we're playing, and in the long haul, it's, makes Villa better and it's part of a process. And in a year's time, we're a much better team and we've improved and blah, blah, blah. Fine, maybe. But I think the opposition's press against Villa is what worries me the most at the moment.
Yeah.
Because
I
I
mean,
think,
so many times last season as well, opposition teams would score,
yeah.
which would then get ruled out for offside.
And we
So,
don't we don't
we
score. We don't, last season we scored first in games all the time. It'd be the
yeah.
first 15 minutes we score. Now it feels like, what, Bournemouth was the last time I can remember us scoring first, maybe.
Mm.
And then he scored in the 75th minute, and then we had a complete panic attack for 15 minutes and just were very un-Unai Emery about things and just went long and gave away stupid free kicks, and that seemed to be the start of the rut. But yeah, like this season continuously, Everton at home, Wolves at home. It's probably some others I'm not thinking of, where Villa just concede first. And that there has to come a point in the season where again, we have to sort of refine the ability to take the lead early on and then, build on that. But at the moment, it always feels like we're conceding stupid early goals or conceding poorly early on and then, having to fight to get back into it. And it just, after a while, that becomes exhausting and it's difficult to keep doing that. Go to any curry house in Birmingham city centre and you aren't finding spice like this in this, the spicy question. George, I ask you today, does Morgan Rogers need time on the bench?
Well, he has been poor. He has certainly been very poor. Uh, you know what? I was listening to some radio commentary of the game today, and some of the commentators were talking about Rodgers and saying, "Oh, what a fantastic season he's had, and he's brilliant. He's one of Villa's biggest threats." And I thought you haven't seen Villa games the last sort of 4 or 5 games, have you, buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been off the boil for a while now, hasn't he? And it's been a shame. And the thing is, this is what happens. If you come to a club and you just excel straight off the bat, more or less, um, and you set that high bar, that when you fall off all the fans are kind of not. They just notice that they notice
Yeah.
it quite clearly that you're not performing at the level that you've sort of have been. And it's difficult, as you say, he's young, he's 21, 22. And so for him to consistently be as good as he has been every single game in a relentless Premier League, Champions League, it's hard. It's tough. Obviously, it's very hard for anyone to maintain. Um, and yeah, I watched the obviously the Juve game, and he just wasn't. Things just weren't coming off for him. He was losing the ball quite frequently. The sort of little intricate passes he was trying to make just weren't coming off, and they
Yeah.
actually sort of came across as quite sort of lackadaisical and sort of not really thought out, really. Yeah, he wasn't doing any of the sort of the bursting runs that he'd been doing at the start of the season, where he was brushing people off and using that strength and power and pace that he's obviously got. That hasn't been evident for a while, and he was trying to do that again today. I remember he was picking up the ball in the first half a couple of times and trying to break through Chelsea's lines and just quite easily getting stopped and outmuscled and the ball taken off him. And it
Mm.
must be so frustrating and disheartening for a player like him. And we could talk about Leon Bailey as well. Someone who not too long ago was finding it quite easy to brush past fullbacks, cut inside, jink past players. He just hasn't been able to do that either, and both players have been struggling. But with with Rodgers, yeah, I think it might help him just to sort of come out the side, and I think it might be worth giving Buendia a start.
Mm.
Just to see how he gets on, because Buendia before the injury, we've talked about this before, was absolutely phenomenal. He was really at the top of his game, arguably one of our best players. Was aiming for a hell of a pre-season last season, and to sort of get going into last year, and that horrible injury, he was out most of the year, came back at the end of last season, and has obviously coming back in dribs and drabs off the bench mainly, really. And yeah, I just feel if there's someone that can come in and try and do that role instead, or operate in a slightly different way, that kind of like number 10 position or just off the striker position, maybe that would just help Rogers just to kind of like recover. I mean, maybe he's got a couple of knocks, maybe he's got an illness or an injury or something, I don't know, that's just sort of holding him back. And so maybe just taking him out the firing line for 1 or 2 games, or at least just have him on the bench to come on after 70 odd minutes if it's not working out. We'll just help him out a little bit. We tried to do that with Bailey today, and with Jaden starting. Maybe we need to think about doing that with Rogers.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like teams are very aware now of Morgan Rogers. And when I talk about the press, it's not just when they press our defenders, which a lot of teams are doing well now. It's when they press Rogers. And I feel like against Crystal Palace, just for a good example of that, where the Palace players would just double up on him. And we're making it just very, very difficult for him to turn. And I think this is part of his growth process. Look, he's
Yeah,
a brilliant talent, and I'm sure he's going to go, as far as he wants in football, basically, because he just has so much ability. but he is just going through a spell where, he's 21, just turned 22. He's now getting a new experience of, right, come into the Premier League. He's really shone. Champions League, he really shone. The Bologna game, for instance, he was amazing. But it feels like now teams are very much have a game plan for him specifically.
Yeah.
And this is a whole new part of his growth process. Like,
Yeah.
how do you react to that? The best players figure out a way, and I think for Rodgers, it does feel a little bit like he's the player who really does never really seems to come out the team, or extremely rarely does, and it just feels a little bit for his own sake. Maybe just needs to start on the bench. I mean, look, I say this, and then we got Brentford and Southampton next week, and I think I really want Rodgers in those games because I think he can open them up and do things. And the thing is, like, you can't underestimate that, Unai Emery is literally saying to him, keep making these passes, keep trying these passes, keep trying to take these players on, because it's the only way you're going to get better and, learn how to make the right pass at the right time. And that's what you just have to accept with someone his age. You might, in a year's time, he'll be further ahead. But right now, he's maybe making passes that in a year's time, he won't be making. But I do think it's with the volume of games we've got, I think, as you say, Buendia, it probably is worth just giving Buendia a start somewhere, and just giving Rodgers a moment on the bench, or switching Rodgers when Ramsey's back, put Ramsey out left, Tielemans in the second striker, put McGinn in centre midfield, or Onana with Kamara, because Kamara, I think, has to play there. I saw him again today, and I thought he's excellent, Kamara. Even in a 3-0 loss, I came out of it thinking, like, if you've watched this game and not thought Kamara as a player, you just don't know anything about football, because I thought he looked really good, actually. I think just give Rodgers a bit of time on the bench now and again, but look, that's with a view to him coming on after 60 minutes, and then who knows, maybe after 60 minutes he comes on, the opposition are tired, and what do you know, he finds lots of space, he's watched them from the bench, figured out where he can target them, and starts to regain his form, and it'll come back for him. It will.
Yeah, I mean, the club have obviously committed. They're very committed to him. He's just the last week or so signed that new contract, which is obviously well deserved to kind of bring up his pay with the rest of the kind of first team players, you'd think. And yeah, he seems happy and settled where he is. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. And I think his downturn in form has really coincided with Villa's. I think, if Rodgers is ticking and on form and bursting past players and creating opportunities and creating chances, then Villa are on form, and obviously he sort of struggled to. He sort of looked a bit lethargic, looks tired, and the team generally have kind of looked tired as a result. And so he will, yeah, as I said, we know what he can do. We've seen him and we've seen what his capabilities are. He seems like a very resilient, level-headed character. I think his personality is good from what I've heard when I've heard him speak. He seems, extremely driven, and someone who wants to improve and wants to work at it, and will quite happily go through, well, not happily, but will go through these dark, difficult spells to ultimately see the positive at the end of it. So yeah, I just think, as I said, for the time being, maybe it'd be quite good for him to watch the game from a different perspective, i.e. from the bench, because as you say, he is someone that tends to be the first name on the team sheet. Maybe if he's sort of withdrawn from the firing line for, at least portions of the game, as you say, he can watch the game from a different perspective from the bench and kind of work out maybe when he comes on in the second half, what he can do to try and improve things for Villa. Because yeah, as I said, when he is on form, he is the first name on the team sheet because he's that important to us. So yeah, he might just need a bit of a break.